Welcome to Warn. Today's news is India on the sidelines as the big boys spend. As the United States and China joust for supremacy, India might remain on the sidelines with its limited resources, says Ajai Shukla. After being sworn in as America's 45th president on January 20, Donald J. Trump has trodden the promised tough line towards China, vowing to build a military might so great that none will dare to challenge it. U.S. conservatives are already drawing triumphal parallels with Ronald Reagan's defense spending spree in the 1980s that induced the former Soviet Union to spend itself into insolvency. However, rival superpower China, which can scarcely ignore the gauntlet Trump has thrown down, has an infinitely more robust economy than that of the former Soviet Union. How will Beijing respond to Trump's belligerence? What does this mean for India? The starting point for any such analysis must be a closer look at whether America can actually muster the dollars needed for the unmatched military that Trump promises. Trump's request for an eye-popping $54 billion, Rs 3.5 lakh crore, raise in defense spending comes after his predecessor, Barack Obama, followed up his troop pullback from Iraq in 2010 by slashing defense spending from 4.7% of U.S. gross domestic product, to just 3.3% of GDP, a 22% cutback that was unprecedented since post-Vietnam. Obama followed that in 2011 by killing or cutting back on major weapons programs, including the F-22 Raptor fighter, C-17 airlifter, multiple kill vehicles, kinetic energy interceptors, airborne lasers and a combat search and rescue helicopter, saving America $487 billion, Rs 32.2 lakh crore, over the coming decade but sharply eroding U.S. combat power. In 2012, with the U.S. military gasping for air, budget sequestration kicked the oxygen cylinder over by slashing tens of billions of dollars more from subsequent defense allocations. Trump's requested hike will face serious opposition on Capitol Hill, given that those tens of billions would come from cutbacks to the Environmental Protection Agency and the State Department. Even if American legislators give their new president all he has asked for, that would still not suffice for the Pentagon's multiple aims: maintaining a credible military presence worldwide, continuing drone strike campaigns in terrorist hotspots, while also rebalancing to Asia to counter China in the Asia-Pacific. Veterans such as Senator John McCain have criticized Trump for timidity for not demanding the resources needed to boost the Navy from 274 ships to 350, and beefing up the Air Force by ordering the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter in numbers. The Wall Street Journal calls the U.S. military a hollow force, pointing out that almost two-thirds of the Navy's backbone F/A-18 fighters, and three-fourths of the Marines, are grounded and unfit for combat. The Air Force is short of 700 pilots and 4,000 maintenance personnel, only one-third of the Army's combat force is ready to deploy within 30 days, and the Army is the smallest it has been since World War II, numbering just 470,000 personnel, barely one-third the size of the Indian Army. Nor is there much upside for Trump in implementing populist campaign promises to arm twist allies, such as Japan and those in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, to stop free riding and start burden sharing. While most NATO allies indeed violate their treaty obligation to spend at least 2% of GDP on defense, there would be little benefit to Washington were the allies to meet these targets. As Stephen M. Wald points out in a recent foreign policy article, NATO's combined weight is already far greater than Russia's, its only conceivable enemy. NATO's European allies are 4 times more populous than Russia, have a combined GDP that is 12 times bigger, and they already spend, not counting US and Canada, 5 times more on defense than Russia does. The problem clearly is not a lack of resources, but rather the absence of planning and coordination. Trump will learn that Washington's pocketbook and presence in NATO is an essential display of its commitment to the alliance, not a handout to ungrateful allies. In contrast to Trump's braggadocio, Beijing has announced a defense budget hike of just 7% next year, its lowest in decades. This takes China's official defense budget to $174 billion, Rs 11.5 lakh crore, barely one-third America's. Increase that by 50%, which experts consider the undeclared part of China's defense budget, spent on its strategic forces, research and defense production units. That places China's real defense spending at $261 billion, Rs 17.2 lakh crore, less than half of America's. However, China compensates for its numerical and qualitative military inferiority by paring down its operations to the local and regional, eschewing the superpower obligations that stretch American forces thin. For example, America's 19 flat-deck aircraft carriers, though it downplays 9 of them as mere amphibious assault vessels, are scattered across the globe. China's fewer carriers, it currently has 1 but intends to build 4 to 5, would all be stationed in its vicinity, creating a measure of parity with the U.S. carriers that could respond to an Asia-Pacific crisis. Further, with significantly lower personnel costs and most of its defense kit developed and built in China, the People's Liberation Army gets more bang for the buck than the Pentagon. Finally, Beijing's defense spending is sustainable, amounting to just 1.3% of its GDP, 1.95% factoring in undeclared expenses. China's annual economic growth can sustain an annual 7% defense hike, even a 10% annual raise provided Beijing is willing to grow defense expenditure to above 2% of GDP. The U.S., however, with an economy that is expected to grow at 2.4% this year, can hardly sustain Trump's hikes year on year. Meanwhile, by way of perspective, India's defense budget for 2017-18 stands at Rs 3,059,845 crore, $53.5 billion, about the raise in U.S. defense spending that Trump wants this year. With this amounting to 2.14% of our GDP, it is a political question whether the government can spend more and, if so, from where that money could be taken. More than half India's budget goes on personnel costs, with less than a quarter earmarked for capital expenditure, i.e., new weaponry. With most of India's weapons systems procured from abroad, India's new kit works out significantly more expensive than China's. As an entrenched superpower faces off against an emerging rival in our extended neighborhood, New Delhi's meager resources, its non-implementation of Make in India and the lack of strategic clarity places us squarely on the sidelines. Thanks for watching. I hope you like this video. Please share your views in comment box. Please like and share this video. Press subscribe button and bell for auto update to you regarding my channel World Action and Reaction News. Warn.